In more than 2,000 years of Chinese imperial history, hundreds of emperors, dozens of dynasties, exactly one woman ever sat on the throne as emperor in her own name. Not as a wife whispering behind a curtain. Not as a mother ruling for a young son. As the Emperor of China. She entered the palace at 14 as a low-ranking concubine, one girl among hundreds, chosen to be decorative and born to be forgotten. When the old emperor died, the rules of the palace locked her away in a convent, her head shaved, her story officially over. Instead, she came back. And step by step, through brilliance, through patience, and through methods that still make historians shudder, she took everything. The palace, the dynasty, the throne itself. This is the dark psychology of Wu Ziqian. She was born in the year 624, into a family with money but without pedigree, her father a timber merchant who had risen into officialdom. In the aristocratic world of Tang China, where the great old clans looked down on everyone, that made her an outsider from birth. Remember that detail. It will decide the fate of an empire. Unusually for the time, her father had her educated. She read. She wrote. She studied history and politics, subjects considered useless for a girl. And at around 14, her path took the turn that would define everything. She was selected for the palace of the great Emperor Taizong as a concubine of the 5th rank. Understand what that position truly was. Hundreds of women, sealed inside gilded walls, ranked like furniture, competing for a single man's fleeting attention. The overwhelming majority lived and died unnoticed. It was a velvet prison. The young were made almost no progress in the usual game. But the stories that survive suggest she was noticed for something else entirely, a sharp mind and an unsettling nerve. In one famous anecdote, when no one could tame the emperor's wild horse, she calmly proposed a method: an iron whip, an iron hammer, and if those failed, a dagger. Whether the story is literally true or later legend, it captures what everyone would eventually learn about her. She spent those palace years doing the one thing available to her: watching. Learning how power actually moved, who rose, who fell, and why. The palace thought it owned a decoration. It was actually training its future master. In 649, Emperor Taizong died, and the machinery of tradition closed over the women of his palace like a tomb. The rule was absolute. Concubines of a dead emperor who had borne no children were sent away to a Buddhist convent, head shaved, world-renounced, to spend the rest of their lives praying for his soul. It was, in every social sense, death. A quiet, respectable erasure. For every other woman, that was the end. For Wu, it was a problem to be solved, because Wu had made one investment that the rules had not accounted for. In the final years of the old emperor's life, she had come to know his son, the soft, gentle-crowned Prince Li Ji, who now ascended the throne as Emperor Gaozong. The sources say the connection between them had already begun, quietly, dangerously, before the old emperor was even gone. And so, within a few years, the impossible happened. The shaved-headed nun returned to the imperial palace, this time in the household of the new emperor. The women of the court actually facilitated it. The reigning Empress Wang, locked in rivalry with another favored consort, brought Wu back deliberately, planning to use this obscure ex-nun as a weapon to distract the emperor from her rival. Hold that thought, because it is one of history's great ironies. The empress opened the palace gates with her own hands to the woman who would destroy her. Here is the first principle of Wu Ziqian psychology: never accept an ending that someone else has written for you. The convent was supposed to be her conclusion. She treated it as an intermission. Back inside the palace, Wu rose with terrifying speed. Within a few years, the emperor was devoted to her, and she had borne him sons, instantly outranking, in every practical sense, the childless Empress Wang. Then, in 654, came the darkest episode of her story. Wu's newborn daughter died in her cradle, and the death was blamed on Empress Wang, who had recently visited the child. The traditional histories go further and level one of the most chilling accusations ever written about a ruler, that Wu killed her own infant daughter with her own hands, precisely to frame the empress. Did she do it? Here you deserve honesty. The historians who recorded this lived under later dynasties and despised everything Wu represented. A woman on the throne was, to them, a cosmic abomination, and blackening her memory was almost a duty. Some modern scholars point out the tragically high infant mortality of the age, and suspect the story grew in the telling. Others note that everything else in her career shows she was fully capable of it. The truth is sealed in the 8th century. What is certain is the result. The accusation shattered the empress's standing. Within 2 years, Empress Wang and the rival consort were deposed, imprisoned, and destroyed. And in 655, the timber merchant's daughter, the discarded nun, was proclaimed Empress of China. This is the second principle, and it is cold. Wu rarely attacked her rivals directly. She arranged for their own positions, their own visits, their own ambitions to become the evidence against them. The empress who schemed to bring Wu back was, in the end, convicted by her own maneuver. Empress was a title. What Wu built next was power. In 660, Emperor Gaozong was struck by illness, most likely a series of strokes that left him weakened, half-blind, and unable to govern for long stretches. Into that vacuum stepped his empress. Officials soon found their memorials being read, and their fates being decided, by the woman seated behind a screen at the emperor's side. For 2 decades, the empire was effectively run by this partnership, and everyone knew who its stronger half was. The court began calling the imperial couple the two sages. A merchant's daughter was now, in all but name, co-ruler of the most powerful state on earth. When Gaozong died in 683, tradition offered Wu a final, comfortable role, dowager empress, retired mother of the new emperor. Instead, she treated her own sons as she treated every obstacle. Her first son to take the throne lasted barely 6 weeks before she deposed him. The next understood the arrangement perfectly. He reigned, his mother ruled. But even that was not the destination. Wu Zetian was done ruling through men. And to take the final step, the step no woman in Chinese history had ever taken, she needed 2 weapons more powerful than any army: information and belief. The first weapon was knowledge, total, merciless knowledge. Wu understood that her position violated every rule of her civilization, which meant that somewhere, always, someone was conspiring against her. Her answer was to make conspiracy impossible, by making secrecy impossible. She ordered bronze petition boxes installed at the heart of the capital, one of history's first formal systems of mass informing. Any subject, of any rank, could deposit a report, grievances, suggestions, and denunciations. Accusations of treason traveled straight to the throne. Informers were rewarded, protected, even promoted. And around this system grew a feared secret police, run by men whose cruelty became legendary, tasked with turning whispers into confessions. The effect rippled through the entire elite. The great families, the old ministers, the princes of the former dynasty, every one of them now had to assume that their servants, their colleagues, even their relatives might be reporting to the throne. Plots died as thoughts, because no plotter could trust a single listener. 13 centuries before the modern surveillance state, a woman in Luoyang had already perfected its psychology. You don't need to watch everyone. You only need everyone to believe they might be watched. It was brutal. Purges swept the aristocracy, and many innocents died alongside the guilty. But it achieved exactly what it was designed to achieve. It made her untouchable. The second weapon was belief itself. The deepest obstacle Wu faced was not any single enemy. It was a sentence, the iron consensus of Confucian civilization. A woman ruling as emperor was against the order of heaven itself. You cannot execute an idea. You cannot imprison a worldview. So Wu did something breathtaking. She went over the rule's head. If Confucian tradition said no, she would answer with a higher authority. Buddhist monks allied to the throne presented a sacred text, a sutra with a prophecy, announcing that a great Buddhist figure was destined to descend into the world as a woman and rule as a universal monarch, bringing an age of peace. Copies spread through the empire. Temples rose. Omens were reported. The message saturated China. Her reign was not a violation of heaven's order. It was heaven's order. And in the year 690, the campaign reached its destination. Petitions poured in, orchestrated, but immense, begging her to take the throne. Wu Zetian proclaimed a new dynasty, her own, and assumed the title no woman had ever held and none would ever hold again: Huangdi, Emperor. This is the fourth principle, and it may be her greatest. When a rule blocks your path and cannot be broken, write a bigger story above the rule. Wu didn't argue with tradition. She outranked it. But conquering the throne is one thing. Holding it, as a female usurper surrounded by aristocrats who despised her, required her subtlest weapon of all. Remember her origins, the merchant's daughter the great clans sneered at. Those same proud northern clans dominated government office through birth and connection, and they were, by instinct and interest, her natural enemies. So Wu quietly rebuilt the machine that selected China's rulers. She massively expanded the imperial examination system, the tests that could lift a talented nobody into high office. She promoted brilliant men of humble origin, personally examined candidates at the palace, and filled her government with a new class of scholar officials. Look at the design. Every examination graduate owed his entire existence to her system, not to a clan, not to inherited privilege, but to the throne that had chosen him. She had manufactured an entire governing class whose loyalty pointed at her, while the old aristocracy watched its monopoly dissolve, generation by generation. The empire, meanwhile, was governed well, the borders held, agriculture was promoted, talent rose. Even the traditional historians who loathed her were forced into grudging admissions about the quality of her rule. This is the fifth principle: surround your enemies with people who owe you everything. She didn't destroy the aristocracy in one purge. She made it irrelevant. Wu Zetian ruled as emperor for 15 years, into her 80s, sharp to the end, though increasingly isolated and attached to controversial young favorites who fed the court's resentment. In the year 705, age finally gave her enemies their opening. Ministers and generals launched a palace coup, executed her favorites, and compelled the old empress to abdicate. Her son was restored, the old dynasty returned. Before the year ended, Wu Zetian was dead, roughly 81 years old, having outlived every rival, every husband, and every prediction ever made about a 14-year-old concubine. And then came her final move, perhaps the most psychologically fascinating of her entire life. Chinese emperors were buried beneath towering stone monuments carved with their achievements, walls of self-praise addressed to eternity. At Wu Zetian's tomb stands her great memorial stele, and it is blank. Not one word. By tradition, at her own instruction. Historians still argue over what it means. A confession that her deeds were too dark to record? A boast that her greatness was beyond words? Or the coldest confidence of all, I will not plead my case. Let history judge me. Whatever she intended, the empty stone worked. 13 centuries later, we are still standing in front of it, arguing about her, which means she is still doing what she always did best, controlling the conversation. So what does Wu Zetian really teach us? That the walls around you are usually made of expectation, not stone. Everything about her world said a concubine is decoration, a widow is finished, a woman cannot rule. She treated each of those sentences not as law, but as an opponent, something to be studied, outmaneuvered, and overwritten. Her methods form a complete anatomy of power. Refuse the ending others right for you. Let your rivals be destroyed by their own maneuvers. See everything, so that plots die as thoughts. When the rules block you, tell a bigger story than the rules. And bind the ambitious to you by becoming the source of everything they are. But her story also carries the honest, darker warning. The price was paid in blood, some of it innocent, perhaps some of it her own family's. Power that total is never clean. Even the blank stone at her grave admits it. Some ledgers are better left unwritten. If this changed the way you see power, subscribe. Because here, we don't study history to escape the past. We study it to understand the games being played around you, right now. And to see the philosophy of winning without fighting, born on the same soil 1,000 years earlier, watch our video on Sun Tzu next. Or see the modern master of the watch society, the story of Stalin.